Early on, we pick up King 10 suited in the small blind. My eyes are a little blurry, and it takes some time for them to focus. There we go. The hijack limps in. I don't see it initially, and I raise to 20, thinking that the big blind is the only player with cards left. The big blind calls. The limper calls as well. We're going 3 ways to the flop, out of position. It's Jack 5 deuce rainbow. We don't have much except some backdoor draws, but it's a super uncoordinated board. I take a stab at it betting 35. The opponent shouldn't have connected too well either. The big blind folds. The hijack thinks about it, then calls. He doesn't seem strong. He probably has a pair worse than a jack. The turn is the 9 of diamonds. If we didn't improve, I was planning on checking. With the draw to the nuts, I keep the pressure on and bet 90. I should be able to get folds out of any small or medium pocket pair that didn't make a set. Plenty of other hands that the hijack may have limped in with that are currently ahead. He doesn't have a lot left, so I definitely don't want to see a jam. He folds. That's right. We get him. It's nice to start the session out with a bluff that gets through. It took me 2 hours to win a hand of any sort in the previous session in Arizona. We did not run well there. I'm glad we get a win early this session. Next, we're dealt 7-5 suited on the button. I opened to 15. The big blind calls. His name is Ryan. He's familiar with the channel, and he's after my Bradley dollars. We're heads up. The flop is ace 8 deuce with 2 clubs. We have a flush draw and a backdoor straight draw. The big blind checks. Ace high boards are slightly better for me. I bet 20 is a semi bluff. It does not get through. The opponent calls. That's okay with me though, because the turn is the 6 of clubs. We drill the flush right in his face. A run bad might be officially over. The big blind checks. I'm going to take him to Value Town with a bet at 45. He's not afraid. He calls. I don't want to see any more clubs. The deck is just like my girlfriend's young daughters. It does what it wants and puts out the 9 of clubs. If only the 8 were a club instead of the deuce, I'd have a straight flush for the first time on video and could potentially get my opponent good. He checks. I'm not sure if I have the best hand. I have to check back.
Bad river for me.
Oh, great river for me. The opponent also turned to flush, but his was higher with the queen 4 of clubs. We just about lose the minimum, and I'm happy to have dodged a bullet. Ryan has been playing aggressively and has already been caught bluffing. I'd have probably called off a lot of money if the river was a blank and he check raised me. I'm glad that he didn't check raise the turn either.
Wow. That's like...
A while later, we scoot over 1 seat and pick up pocket aces in the small blind. Ryan is now directly on my left in the big blind. The button opens at 15. He has a small stack. I don't want to 3-bet and have him fold. Instead, I just flat and set the trap for the aggressive big blind player with a larger stack. I rarely ever do this, especially from the small blind, but now Ryan is set up perfectly to 3-bet squeezed light. The button could have a wide range, and in Ryan's mind, I shouldn't have anything very strong at all since I just called out of the small blind. The action goes just how I drew it up. The big blind 3-bets a 70. We're living the dream. The button folds. It's on me. Now I get to do something that will look incredibly odd. I back 4-bet to 225. I don't need to make it very much since I started the hand with 950. The opponent has me covered, and it should be easy to get the rest in if I get called. I also want to give him some rope in case he wants to jam on me as a bluff. He calls, so we're playing a large 4-bet pot out of position. The flop comes 7-6 deuce with 2 hearts. The best thing about aces is that no matter what the dealer puts out there, you're always at least going to have an overpair. I down bet to 200. Again, the big blind can still potentially shove as a bluff if he thinks I'm getting out of line. He can shove for value if he has a decent overpair as well. He's got some Bradley dollars from the flush over flush hand. We're going to need him to return those to us. He seems to be on board with that plan.
All in? 5?
I don't know if you got it or not. You just got it? Oh, Brad, give all Bradley dollars back. Hopefully.
We're up against pocket 10s. It's tough to get it in better than this. Luckily, he doesn't have a heart either. He's going to have to hit 1 of 2 outs or have the board run out with a 9 and an 8 to make a straight. We're playing almost a $2,000 pot. Let's go. The turn is the 4 of hearts. We're 1 step closer. The river looks scary, but it's the 9 of diamonds. We win a huge pot for this game. Our sneakiness pre-flop pays off big time.
I never would have thought you'd have just called the small blind with that.
Yep.
I woke up with a hand.
It's sort of a cooler since we both had strong hands in the blinds. Ryan's a good guy, but I'm glad to see the dollars come back home.
Nice hand, buddy. Nice hand.
Perhaps the 9K downswing is in the past after all. This is the first large pot that I've won in a long time. After the past few sessions, I've almost forgotten what it's like to book a win. This is exactly what I needed to get my mindset in a good spot again. It doesn't appear that we'll have any issues booking a win today. Later on, we pick up ace-jack suited in the big blind. Lenny limps in from the hijack. I've seen some other hands it's limped in with, and most of the time they're not great. I've seen some suited connectors, and even some hands like jack-9 offsuit. Since I should be way ahead of its range, I raised to 20. Lenny immediately gets chips and calls. We're heads up, out of position. The flop comes 10-9-8 rainbow. We have an open-ended straight draw, 2 overs, and a backdoor flush draw. The problem is that this absolutely smashes Lenny's limp calling range. He could already have a straight, 2 pair, or a set. I'm not going to have any of those holdings when I raise from the big blind. If I wasn't suited, I might have just checked pre-flop. I probably wouldn't have raised with queen jack, 7-6, or any of the 2 pair combinations. I check here. Lenny bets 40. That's more than I was hoping. I'm not letting my hand go yet though. I call. Maybe we can drill the straight. The turn is the 4 of clubs. We pick up a flush draw. I check. Lenny still likes his hand. He bets 90. I get the sense that Lenny is really strong, probably too strong for his own good. Luckily, I don't see any rabbits or puppies around. I call. We drill the river. It's the 9 of clubs. We hit the backdoor nut flush. The problem is that the board is paired. We're probably okay, but I'm somewhat concerned. I check. Lenny's not slowing down. He grabs a handful of green chips and bets 300. It's a pot-sized bet. I don't love that, but this is the very best hand that I'll ever play this way. I call immediately, and we're pretty much up against the type of hand that I was worried about.
Why I just called. Nice one.
The river was the perfect card for Lenny. That takes a huge chunk out of my profit. Just when I think things are making a turn for the best, a Cobra Kai sweep of my leg comes out of nowhere. I'd lose a couple other small hands later. It's been tough for me to book wins lately. If I get stuck after being up big, I'd probably tilt off a lot more money, so it's best if I rack up a small win and call it a day in order to keep my sanity and build some confidence for future sessions.